Hello and welcome at Business Plus Monitor podcast. This episode is going to be in English because the one that we invited is going to speak in English. The one that we invited is Mr. Kambis Kohansal.
Perfectly. Yeah.
Thank you. And you are the head of service or startup services at the Austria Federal Economic Chamber.
Also spelled very well. Yeah, exactly. So I'm responsible for all the startups in Austria.
Yes, that's amazing. And right now we are at Tirana Techno Open 2023, the second edition of Technological Fair in Albania. May I ask you, how important are these fairs for young people to attend, and for the business, for the market, for the industry? How important are these fairs?
So yeah, short answer, very important. Why? So I've been here last year already in Tirana, Albania, and also Shkodra, I think it's called. And this is my second time, and it's actually very interesting to see what has happened, in, let's say, 12 months, in Tirana, Albania already, with the opening of the pyramid, with like a lot of tech festivals. So I've just taken a look, okay, what kind of tech festivals are going on here, and the last couple of weeks they were like packed. Why is it important? First of all, you find like-minded people, so it's very important for networking, and this is important for upcoming founders because they need to get more experience. And how do they do this? Wants to exchange ideas and their thoughts with more experienced founders, which they can do here in tech, the tech opening, or let's say the tech festival. And second, this networking overall leads to more know-how transfer. So not just based on experience, but if you want to set up a company, what you need to take a look at, what is important. So you need this personal, social, connection, inclusion, which I think is very important. You shouldn't go to all the events, but there are some that are actually very important. And one of these is right here at the moment.
The Tirana at Tirana Tech
exactly.
Open. You said that you are the head of all startups in Austria right now. But how did you start it? What motivated you to go to the startup business?
Yeah, sure. So it was around 2011. I was graduating from my first university, the Vienna University of Economics and Business, quite a good school if you want to become a founder. And I was at the very end of my bachelor's degree. And at this point of time, the Austrian and particularly the Viennese tech ecosystem was starting to develop. It was the very beginning with the first tech festivals actually at this point of time. And I had to make a decision. Do I want to go work for a big corporate, or do you want to found my own startup? And the thing is, I was at a career exhibition called Career Calling, and funnily I met there one of my co-students who was also studying with me at the same course, and he stayed in my mind because he was always expressing thoughts and so on. And then I saw him here at the Career Calling, at the career exhibition, with the smallest stand of all the companies there. And I went there and said, okay, very small, but he had a great marketing idea because he was giving free sweets away, and everyone was running there to get the sweets. So I was one of them. And then I saw, okay, what should do? It's called the project was called like this: a storytelling portal where people and their jobs are portrayed in short video clips. And I saw, okay, young team, startup, actually evolving. And this is very important because I could emotionally identify myself with the problem, because they were actually giving a service to young people who were not sure about where to head to in terms of the career. So I joined them. Then we found the company. I became a co-founder. And at this point of time, it was one of the highest scaling startups in Austria. We were active in 6 countries, 70 employees, millions of funding we received. But after 5 years I left. Why? Because we had first of all, scaling this business, this growth was actually quite difficult and challenging, but we had some conflicts in between the founders and the management. So I left and I started setting up new businesses, new startups, from mobility over HR to education. And after 10 years, switched side, became an investor, angel investor, and set up also involved myself in VC funds, venture capital funds. And 3 years ago, I joined the Chamber of Commerce, trying to serve, educate, and actually lobby for all the startups in Austria.
You said that right now you're the head of startups in Austria, but you said that you started with different projects. What advice would you give to the youth that wants to start a startup today and doesn't know where to go?
Yeah. So one advice we already mentioned, like going to exhibitions and like tech festivals, like here, which is a great way to connect. But what is very, very actually advantageous, compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, startups are connected worldwide. Is one of the most globalized, in a positive way, organizational cultures you can imagine. So think about Tirana Tech, Viennese Tech, Berlin, London, Silicon Valley. You can get access quite easily because it's very well connected. So get in touch with different people, set up your network, get some peer founders who have more experience where you can learn from. Also take a look what is happening worldwide, not just here in Albania or Austria or Europe. Make a worldwide market research, check what is going on. You can learn out of like other countries and cultures what kind of like problem needs to be solved. So make in-depth worldwide research, get in touch with peer founders, like-minded people, try to think international, global. Do your homework in identifying your target group and then start developing it. Once you start developing your product or service, test it, validate it, go for MVPs, like it's called a minimal viable product, and try all the time testing to understand what kind of solution do you need to serve. And always be sure and certain about it that you always need to learn. So the learning curve is never going to stop. Because you start maybe with a team, a founding team. Then you get the first first employees. Then you have the investors, the first customers. Then you scale. Then you go international. There's always a learning curve. So never believe that you know everything. Try to challenge yourself and go for what the market is looking for and not what you believe is actually the right thing to do.
May I ask you, in what phase are the startups right now at Vienna? What are the developments, and not only in Vienna, but in all Austria?
Mm-hmm. I mean, a startup life cycle has different stages, from pre-seed very early on, where you just might have like some like a prototype and first pilots, then to seed stage, which means you're already generating revenue, you have an MVP, some kind of market validation, and then you go for growth stage, series A, B, C, and so on. And we have everything. So from very early on, before foundation, to like unicorns, so startups with a valuation of 1 billion upwards. But it took us 10 years. So developing startup and tech ecosystem, even if some people in the startup ecosystem always want to have everything at the very moment and very fast, it doesn't work like this. It takes years. The same as it takes years, to actually make a company successful. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 15 years. So you need to be patient, very patient. You need to keep on going. You're not allowed actually to give up. And you need to have the right people surrounding you who actually push you positively, who make you better, and vice versa.
There is this idea that when you start a startup, you will be a millionaire overnight. What can we say about that? Is that it's not true, but what should we say to these people who think that?
No, I can tell it's not true. It's also like if you take a look at the data, it's not true, because sometimes, it looks like, overnight success. That's actually a lie. Sometimes people work on it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and then it becomes a success. So persistence is very important. I think this is something which needs to be adapted much more by startup founders, because they're always fast going. This has to do also with the whole venture capital movement, hyperscalability and hypergrowth or everything. This is changing and has changed because the last couple of years there was an inflation of capital funding, high valuations all over the world, and now a lot of the startups who got funding at a very high valuation are not working anymore. So the business model is not working. So that's why now it's not just scaling above everything, but also have a right business model, become profitable, be patient as an investor. And I can tell you about my own story. So think about it. I was 5 years my first startup. And then 30 years with all the other startups, and it took me also like 10 years, around 10 years with the first exit. And then once you do your first exit, then it becomes easier, because then you have the network, then you have the trust by the people. But you need to stick being patient, and this is very hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me, but you can actually adjust yourself to this if you train it.
We say that startups are very successful, but there are some fields that they are more successful than others. What kind of fields should people begin to invest in startups?
So this depends on the country and region. So, for instance, I can
tell
you,
Austria.
let's say about Austria. Austria, if you take a look at the top 5 verticals, so sectors last year, in terms of like investment volume, which is just one factor, not everything, but who were the 5 sectors with the most investment? So one for sure is transportation, mobility, logistics, very strong in Austria. Then you have life science. It's so digital health tech, medical technologies, and so on. Then everything related to climate. Climate is actually really getting stronger, particularly in Europe. So most new venture capital funds are actually in the fields of climate. It's also, some kind of marketing positioning for sure. But the good thing is, once there's regulation, supranational legislation by the European Union, for instance, it's a very good actually moment to start your business in this very area, because okay, the regulation actually demands for consumers or companies to go to, for instance, be more CO2 or to reduce the CO2 emission, for instance. If you absorb this a bit and you see where the capital is moving, actually that's a good area to go to. Then we have education for sure. Property tech is coming on, but they're also like very niche verticals. Think about, let's say, quantum technology, very strong in Innsbruck, Tyrol. One of the strongest actually universities in Europe is like in Innsbruck. So that's why there's no like go this direction, do this direction. Think about where you want to work at, what do you believe in, and then validate this idea. Make the customer research. Take a look where the market is heading to, and then you move into this direction. And for sure in Tirana and Albania, same applies, so you have a lot of movement in climate, in also health tech, but fintech, for instance, financial services, digital economy, this is still where actually Albania can improve a lot. But in the end, you should identify yourself with the idea as well. I think that's important to keep being motivated.
Can we say that the startups are for the new generation, not the old one? Is it only for this generation, or can for I say 65, 70 years old person start a startup today and say, I will make my own unicorn?
So let me ask you a question regarding this. So what do you think is the average age realistically for someone to start a startup company? What do you think, let's say in Austria, Albania, or Europe?
I would say experience helps a lot.
Yeah, sure.
And I would say between 40 to 50 years old, it helps. But in the same time, the ones that have passion about it are the young people. Because we say we are going to start, and they are the young people who want to start something. We say the age of 40, it's young, still young, but to 60, 70 years old, maybe that passion has faded a lot. But they have the experience, and they have the whole knowledge, and I think they are precise, not very rushed.
Totally. So let me give you a number on this based on data. So for instance, in Europe, it's around 36, 37. So it's not like the student is like, with the 20s starting a business. This can happen, but the average age is quite older because experience matters. And now think about the people who are above 50 and 60. There are founders like this, but they're not like, the biggest group there. But think about, in the end, you usually would go for a founding team. So why not mix it up with people who have maybe the passion and the drive, and people who are more experienced? If they have the same values and the same vision, then this will work as well.
Now, for the last question, a personal one. What are the plans for the future? Do you want to start a new startup? Do you want to change something? What is your plan for the future?
I mean, I quite like what I'm doing, lobby for startups on Austrian and European level, so with the European Union. My goal is actually to set the bridges between Austria and emerging upcoming tech ecosystems like Albania, like the whole Balkan, like West and East Africa, like Middle East still, So that's my ultimate goal, because we can learn from each other, we can exchange in talent, in know-how, in investment capital, and so on, and also access each other markets. That's what I'm working on. And I think now it's the right time actually to set up a business, start a business here in Tirana, Albania, because I can feel this, this different kind of vibe, that something is happening. I saw it last year, I see it now, I see more and more international, investment activities here. I see a lot of more young people going into software development, AI. So you have the factors that are relevant to actually create a actually very good tech ecosystem, and that's what we can work on together.
In fact, that's what I was thinking when I said the startups for the young people, because I've seen in Albania that they are very passionate about it, and I think they will be interested in this conversation, because it's a very good conversation in your aspect, in your experience, and all your knowledge about this section. So I'm very thankful that I had you here today, and I hope we can have this conversation again.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.